Hello, welcome to PR Reef. My name's Riley. I'm just a everyday average person who likes to do reef keeping on a budget. Now, basically, my broken tank over here broke a couple of days ago where the whole chunk came out of the fish tank. And basically this was my first ever reef tank. Now, good news for everyone is later on we will feature the upgrade from that tank where all the fish went. But we're actually going to be setting up today a second-hand reef tank that was pulled off Facebook Marketplace. It does come with a sump. Now, I will be honest, this is my first sump, so please bear with me on that. I'm still learning all about the sump. Now, we've got the filter media in here. So that's ready to all go. We've got a filter sock, we've got the TMC pump at the back there with the control panel, which is a very handy feature, so you can control the pump. Now, I've already taken the rock out of the old fish tank and put it in a bag whilst I was emptying that out. Now, there is a common myth or question really of whether you need to add the rock before the sand or the sand before the rock. Now, I find in reef keeping that putting the rock down first is actually better because a lot of the fish like to burrow under the rocks, and if you have sand and it slightly moves, it could cause the stones to collapse over the actual fish itself. So please bear with me and I will quickly get the rock unpacked and we'll start setting up the tank. So we've laid out all the rock. As you can see, there's lots of different shapes, different sizes and things like that. A lot of people would throw away little bits like these, but actually they're quite handy for filling in little gaps and keeping things a little bit more stable. Now, you can create lots and lots of different shapes, things that are a little bit more unnormal by actually using the Reef Safe Super Glue Gel from Grilla. Now, as a common art, can we use different glue? What glue should we use? And basically, I just stick with the Gorilla Glue Gel. You know it's good, you know it's safe, and it's straightforward and simple. Now, one thing I will say is if you're using the putty, the two-colour putty to mix and to join the rocks together, make sure you do it out of water and let it harden without it, because I have tried to use the putty before to stick some coral frags onto a rock, and basically, let's just say it dissolved, it didn't stick, it was an absolute nightmare. So make sure if you're using the putty, you use it outside of the water. So I'm now going to start building using the rocks that we've got here. Now, I will say I am a short ass, so I have got a stool to stand on, so you might just see me up and down a fair amount. Now, when you do rocks, try to make sure that you don't touch the backs or the side, because you're going to want to be able to clean them. Try not to bang the glass as much as I just did, because that's not very helpful. And you could scratch your glass before you even get started. And don't be afraid to not use all the rocks that you have, because sometimes you just need to have like looks of different shapes, and it doesn't always mean that you need to use it all. Now I'm going for a bit of a lagoon look. And I find it quite helpful to have little tunnels and things like that where they can kind of swim in and around. So it gives it a bit more natural hiding spaces and things like that. Now make sure when you do the rockscapes you actually do a tap test, because that way if something lands on it you'll know whether it's actually safe for a fish to sit on, because a lot of fish likes to sit on things. So as you can see now, that's a lot more sturdy and stable. And try not to do that. At the moment I'm having a debate on whether I actually need to add any more or not. I might put a couple of little rocks round and odd ends, so just for the little zoas and things like that, just so you can kind of have different things growing in different places. Kind of want to add that branch piece, but I just don't think I've got the space to be able to do it, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave it there because I think that's enough rock really. So as you can see, you've got a nice little cove for the fish to sleep in and to kind of swim around. I've added a lot of flat spots so we can add lots of corals and things like that. So we're now going to add sand to the fish tank. So don't tell hubby, but I've nicked the kitchen spoon. So I'm going to actually scoop this up. You can see it's a little bit bent, so at least that way I don't get the old tank water in. And then I'm going to spread it. Now the good thing about having a sand bottom tank and with the rock is it actually works as an added filtration. So it actually helps keep the tank extra clean and keep the bacteria correct and right. Now, as you can see, I'm pushing around the rocks to keep it a bit more sturdy and to give it a bit more of a base. And the spoon just allows me to get into the little crevices but without knocking the actual rock itself. Hence why I'm using the kitchen spoon and not a bucket or a jug or anything else. As you can see we're now halfway through, so you can see I'm getting right into the crevices of the rock and making sure I've got about a good depth of sand just to keep it going and to help build up that bacteria. So I've now finished putting all the sand in. And I've actually pushed it into the crevices, so as you can see there's no gaps, but fish can actually dig out and put their own little homes in there. Now do not worry about the sand being on top of the rocks or on the back of the glass, because the moment you add water it's all going to be washed off, so it's not a permanent feature, but it will look just as good. Now I'm not too fussed about the colours of the rock, due to the fact in a few months time, or a few months to a few years, that will all go the same colour. So to be honest, is there really much of there's a price difference between the Carib Sea live rock which is kind of reef rock just coloured with the bacteria on it, to just normal reef rock, which you can buy nearly half the price, to be honest. And to be fair, other than the bit of bacteria that comes with it, it's not really, in my opinion, worth it, especially when you're trying to do a reef tank on a budget. Okay, so it's now time to add water. We're actually now going to be putting the water in the sump first, which is a total of 35 litres in the sump. You may find it helpful to get somebody who is a lot stronger, especially if you're quite small like I am. So as you can see, he's just adding it to the sump, nothing special. As you can see, the water has gone through into that chamber down there. Now that's all filled up in the sump tank, it's important to you to know not to use normal tap water, because when the water goes into the water companies to get it clean to come out of your tap, they add a lot of chemicals to the water, which can be causing a lot of issues with your tank, including algae issues, problems with your fish. So it's important to make sure that you use a RO water, or you can buy it at your local fish shop. Now, I will be perfectly honest with you, we do have another tank, so we actually make our own salt water. And basically what we use is a TDS meter. Now this actually measures how much goodness and parts per million of chemicals in the water. So basically it'll tell you, and you want it to get as close to 0 as you possibly can. One thing I tend to do is when I go and get RO water from an aquatic shop, is I always check it when I come home to make sure I know roughly what I'm actually putting into my tank chemical wise, because a lot of it can cause a lot of algae and bacteria blooms and things like that. So I really just make sure that the water is all good for the tank. Now this is a TDS meter. This here shows how many parts per million chemicals are actually in the water, and you want this to get to close to a 0 as you possibly can. And I will be perfectly honest with you as well, it's quite a handy tool, because if you're not quite sure if your thermometer on your tank is working properly, it actually can tell you what temperature your water is at as well. Here goes the second bit of water. This one's now going into the main tank. Now it's important to make sure you hit the sides or hit the rock. If you do find that you're going to have sand blow up and things like that, you can always use a plate. But just because of the lack of room in that tank now, I'm not going to be able to put a plate in there, so we're just splashing up against the rock there. Now don't worry if your water goes cloudy, it's perfectly normal, and a lot of the new salt that you get, like the Carib Sea, ocean reef sand, basically all comes with packages that actually you can add to the water, which clears your water up absolutely fine as well. So now the next day, it took all night to basically fill up, so to save you the time watching that. So as you can see, it's now all full up, and the sump is full up there as well. Just make sure no wires go into the water, because apparently I did not. Now what we're going to do is actually now add salt to the aquarium itself, and we're going to use today Ocean Reef Pro Coral Salt. It's actually a really good salt. It dissolves very quickly. That's what I found anyway. I have used TMC salt, I have used lots of different salts, but so far this one actually seems to be my favourite. As you can see here, we've actually got how many litres it makes there. So roughly you're just going to have to gauge it roughly on how much it needs, but if you have a refractometer, you can get a digital one or you can get one of these. These are a lot cheaper, and to be honest, there's not much of a huge difference between the two, and this one saves you a lot of money, so I'd stick with this one. What you do is you add some salt, you see how it goes, and then you measure in the refractometer. So I take the lid off. Now I will tell you now, the scoop is not included in there, so you can use a jug, which might be a lot easier, especially if you're filling up the tank for the first time. Now it's important to say you should never add salt into the aquarium if it's got fish directly. You should mix it up in a separate bottle and then add it to the aquarium, and once it's fully dissolved and it's been cycling for a little while. Now please, please, please make sure that you do it slowly and gradually, so that way you can get an accurate reading on the tank. What I'll do is I'll come back to you once we've finished adding the salt. Okay, so I've now put in the salt, so what I'm going to do is start the pump down there at the bottom. I do use an extension cord because fish tanks do take a little while, and I'm going to switch on the light and the heater as well to start heating up the water. Now we're going to let that mix for a little while, and I'll come back to you once it's all fully mixed and heated up. So I've now finished adding all the salt, and it is now the correct salinity level, which is all good. So that's basically how we set up a reef tank. Thanks ever so much, and please do not forget to like and subscribe so we can add more videos and do some more exciting content. We might even do an unboxing soon for some fish to add into this fish tank. Also put any comments below on what kind of fish you think would suit this tank, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon on our next video. Thank you.